Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Full Throttle Finance, a financial literacy podcast geared towards taking complex financial topics and breaking them down into small, bite-sized chunks. My name is Felicia, and I am your CEO at Clean Bee Consulting, and with me is Allison, who is our senior bookkeeper. Together, we focus on revving up the financial foundations for athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders in business. Regardless if you are operating from an established program already or if you are just getting started, we are here to help you make small shifts that help you drive better financial performance.
Yeah, and so I am back from vacation. We had our catch-up episode last week. We also revealed something super exciting, that we are sponsoring a rider, which is just so cool because, again, it just shows you that you can market your business any way that you want to. We also talked about how we're going to be here at Road Atlanta. We're recording this the week before, but as of right now,
When you see this,
we're in Atlanta. And It's our retreat. So it's our first company retreat, and we're going to talk about how we're doing all that fully legally, and that's just so cool. So, we're here for Road Atlanta. And so this is a fan favorite for MotoAmerica. It's just like a really brutal track that's going to be really hard on athletes, and it's a true test of skill and machine performance. So I think this is going to be a really cool race for me as the first racing in person. But we're financial experts, so we always want to talk about the financial aspects of things. So we're going to talk about travel and what's deductible, how to stay organized while you're traveling, and how you can actually stay on top and organize your receipts, which can get a little chaotic when you're traveling like this.
Yep. So we'll hit on some financial topics because we promised you guys that we would talk about some finance this week, but we're going to try and keep it brief because we also want to just talk about MotoAmerica and the championship standings and kind of what's been going on thus far in the season as it started to unfold and what we can kind of expect out here at Atlanta this weekend. So since I have never been to this racetrack specifically, I have watched plenty of races, car, motorcycle, all sorts of types of racing around the track. But I haven't actually ever been out to Road Atlanta itself. And, the Daytona 200 episode was actually a real big hit for us. So we took a couple of pieces of advice from that episode, and we thought it might be cool to start off with a little bit of history about Road Atlanta. So, Allison, you like history. Do you want to go ahead and give us some facts that you found about Road Atlanta?
Yeah, and definitely. So I only have a couple facts, but the track was built in 1970, and it was one of the premier courses in the U.S. It is known for its fast elevation changes and that famous SC's section. You know what I'm talking about? S's. Okay.
So think of it like an S.
Okay, cool.
The pattern an S makes, that's the pattern that the track makes through that section of the course.
That makes a lot more sense. I was trying to come up with a little history for this, and I found it, and it was trying to pronounce it, and then I was looking at the definition of it, and it was specifically a series of left and right turns, and I was just I'm not sure what that means, but
yes.
That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. That's when you think of left and right turns, it's is it a 90 degree?
That's I was thinking it way too. Yeah.
You're thinking that you're riding around in boxes around the track.
It's really a tough track.
Yeah, but no, it's going to be sweeping, curvy left and right turns.
I can only imagine how challenging that's going to be, especially because I don't know if you've seen the weather for next weekend, but it's going to be.
I don't.
I know you're in Washington. It's going to be 80 degrees and soggy, girl. Be humid and hot.
And it's going to be humid and hot. And, it's in that southeast corridor. Rain is always on the table. Let's just be serious. So, and, I think especially after Barber, which, again, is in that same region, it's really not that far of a distance between Barber, where the last round for MotoAmerica was, and Atlanta, where we're at now. And we saw Barber. We got a couple of good, beautiful, sunshiny days. And then Sunday came around and it just dumped buckets for the entire day. So
Which can make it makes it tough.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now that we got the little bit of history, because that's about all we have the attention span
Right.
when it comes to engine history, let's go ahead and try and knock these financial topics off the list because I am ready to talk motorcycles, if
Me
we're being
too.
quite honest. So we want to talk about what it is like. What kinds of deductible expenses our athletes and our race teams and our personnel that are supporting the paddock, let's say, for over the course of a race weekend? We want to talk about what the different types of deductible expenses you might encounter while you're traveling or while you're out at one of these race events. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the best practices that we use either for ourselves or that we use with clients that do a lot of travel, just kind of some of the best practices to help make it less cumbersome and more of just second nature, I'd say. So first of all, let's talk about the financial side. Like, what are deductible expenses while you're out at the racetrack or while you're maybe traveling to one of these events as somebody who is working, let's say, working. So first and foremost in the travel bucket, we've got flights, we've got gas, we've got lodging. Those are going to be your big ones. Rental cars as well too. Like all of those expenses are 100% deductible, which means that they come off of your gross revenue and help land you at your net taxable income. So they reduce what you're going to owe in taxes essentially. And so on travel, right, it doesn't matter if it's with Delta. It doesn't matter if it's with Allegiant. It doesn't matter what carrier you choose. The IRS just says it can't be extravagant and it cannot be extraordinary. So as long as it is a normal cost that is necessary for you to get to the location to do your job out at the track, the government deems it as a deductible expense. And you choose one or the other. Like, let's say you live in one of the bordering states to Georgia, right? And you maybe don't need a flight to get out to the track, but you are going to drive your own personal car out there. So you can take the option of either deducting the gas that you spend while you're out on that trip to get you from point A to point B, or you can track the mileage and use the IRS. I think it's 70 cents a mile is the redeemable rate for 2025. You can track your mileage and you can use the miles on your tax return at the end of the year to get a deduction on your income tax. So there's a bunch of different ways that it can be done. And we have clients that do it both ways, to be honest. It just depends upon their own internal workflows and what works best for them to track the receipts and to provide us with the proof of that reimbursement or of that expense for the deductions. So travel is one of the bigger buckets, I would say, that you're going to have out at the racetrack for the weekend. Next big bucket is probably going to be meals, which meals can be done in a bunch of different ways, right, Allison? Like, you can give your employees a company card and give them like a daily allowance for food. You can reimburse your employees or your program members for expenses that they've received for meals. You can deduct them on your own personal taxes as somebody who's working out there if maybe they're not getting reimbursed by the track organization that you're working with or the team organization that you're working for. Or there's also, I mean, I feel we have clients that use per diems, right? But like, I feel like the word per diem is like, I date it to my parents.
I do too. Yeah.
Like, I feel like nobody talks about per diems these days, but per diem is honestly one of the best tools that an employer can use to reimburse for meals for employees while they're traveling. So per diem is essentially you get an allotted amount of money. Doesn't matter if you spend more, if you spend less on your meals, you just agree that you're going to pay, let's just make it easy. Like you get a $50 per day per diem. And so the person who's processing the payment, the employer or the team organization that's paying their 1099 contractor, which I'm going to say if you're offering per diem and you got contractors on your team, it's probably a big red flag that they should be employees.
Not contractors, yeah.
And not contractors. Doesn't mean we don't see it still happen, but, just shifting that mindset a little bit. But a per diem is basically the same amount of money per day. That's what you get. You can overspend. That's on you. You can underspend. You keep it. But no matter what, the business can plan that it's always going to be $50 per person per day. And the business gets to take that deduction regardless if the employee uses the full 50 or if they don't use the full 50, regardless. And so, meals, we think of meals as we're going to an establishment to get food or something along those lines. And I would say for most businesses, that is a standard meal expense. But knowing how the track life is and how teams will camp out at the track and how you have to stay hydrated, how you have to stay fueled throughout the entire day, your snacks and beverages and ice are also all tax deductible expenses.
So like a Walmart expense, so like a Safeway, like kind of like what we're planning on doing on our retreat. We're going to try and pick up some snacks. We're going to try and pick up some foods that we can easily prepare at the hotel so that we're not spending so much money at the restaurants.
Exactly. So we've got travel and we've got meals. Those are two of, I would say, the biggest deductible expenses that you're gonna constantly meet out at the track when you're traveling as a team or as an athlete. Some other deductible expenses that maybe the wheels just haven't spun for you yet, that you can deduct them if you have revenue and if you have income coming in related to racing, is your track entry and your track registration fees. So, for teams, this is all of the credentials that you buy for your team so that they can be in the paddock and so that they can get into hot pit. All of those are 100% tax deductible expenses. As a racer who is participating in the event, who has to pay an event registration fee to register for their class, that is also a tax deductible expense. So making sure that you are tracking them and that you have receipts is going to be really important because it brings down your net taxable income number at the end of the year. Gear and equipment shipping. And so, we work with teams. They ship things out to racetracks or to shops around racetracks and pick them up closer to the round. And like we mentioned in our last episode, sometimes you just got to take it on an airplane too, because that's just what you got to do. So if you encounter any postage fees to ship, or if you encounter any baggage fees to check, and we're talking parts, we're also talking athletes. You're bringing multiple suits with your airbags, you're bringing, all of your boots and your helmets, and you're bringing all of this gear with you. If you pay a fee to check that when you go to fly on your plane, that is a tax deductible expense, and you should record it and you should keep your receipt. Marketing and sponsorship expenses, like us sponsoring a rider, that is 100% a deductible expense. And so alternatively, as a team, any marketing that you are paying for, that includes your photographers, your videographers, your social media managers, any of that kind of stuff that's happening that will promote your team, will expose your athletes and your team to more faces, that is going to be a deductible expense as well. And then the obvious ones, I would think, because they are directly related to making sure you can go around the track, are going to be your tires, your fuel costs, and that's your fuel for your trailer or your rig. That's your fuel for your bike. That's your fuel for your jennies. That's propane for anything that you have that might need propane at your setup. All of that is 100% tax deductible as well, too. So making sure you're documenting everything and why you are using it is going to be the key here. And then the last one is just contracted services. If you hire hospitality staff for the weekend, sometimes we see, models out here with some of these big teams, or we see cooks for in-suite cooking or like in-pit cooking and whatnot. Any of those contracted services are also 100% tax deductible. So these could be some deductions that you're missing out on, or that you might not know because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know until you ask it, until you have somebody that you can ask it to. You could be leaving money on the table if you're not documenting everything correctly.
I think what we usually tell our clients is like some easy tips to stay on top of your receipts is just literally snap a picture of it. Like if you go to the gas station, snap a picture of it. If you've got a receipt from the hotel, snap a picture of it. Like, I don't know about you, but when I'm traveling, the paper just gets tossed in the backseat and I'm a mess. And so if you just snap a picture of it, you can easily email it to your bookkeeper. You can easily enter it into your system when you get home. And it's just an easy way to keep track of your transactions so that you can, get all those deductions at the end of the year.
Yeah, and you don't even necessarily like in the moment. And I think that's probably part of what holds people up from actually like giving the receipts to their bookkeeper, right? Is that it all doesn't have to happen in one sweep. You don't have to get the receipt, take a picture of it, and send it to your bookkeeper
Just snap
all
the
in
picture.
one. Just snap the picture and then put like a task on your calendar for like your first day that you're back home after a race weekend to send an email or to like upload the receipts or something like that. Like you don't have to do it all in one. But if you get the paper, you take a photo and you have it on your device, then you can toss the paper and you don't have to worry about it again.
Exactly.
And then when your bookkeeper asks a week later if you have a receipt, you're like, oh yeah, I have a ton to send you.
Exactly.
And then we go, yay, you get a gold star this weekend.
Another thing would be really helpful with people is also an app or something that they can, maybe they don't have a bookkeeper, maybe they're DIYing it themselves. What would an app that a listener, somebody could utilize today?
Yeah, we use a lot of different methods with clients because again, it matters what works best for the organization. So one program that we really love is HubDoc. It's specifically a software that syncs with accounting programs like QuickBooks and like Xero, but it's an easy way. Like when you take the photo on your phone, there's an app. And so instead of taking a photo and then emailing it to somebody later on the following week, you just take the photo through the app and it automatically shows on our end from our clients. And same thing, like if it's an email, like for, let's say you bought parts from a vendor and they emailed an invoice to you with HubDoc, you can forward the email directly over to your HubDoc account and it'll spit it over. And then we can push it over to the accounting system from there. So we really love HubDoc, but we also have clients that use programs called like Expensify, which is essentially HubDoc. It's just like a little bit more complex in my opinion. And usually you see clients that maybe like have billable expenses to other projects. That's kind of where I usually see Expensify being used. Another platform that is super great that I love is Ramp. And Ramp is one where you can give your employees credit cards to your main credit card line of credit. And every time and you set up the policies so that like every time they swipe a card, they get a text message on their phone that's like, hey, you need to provide a receipt or else your card's going to get locked.
Cool.
And so that's a really great way to manage it when you have multiple employees under your program, right?
Good reminder.
To make sure that you're getting that receipt
Straight
capture from them. And again, it's the same thing. It texts you on your phone. It says, send a receipt. And so you take the receipt photo on your phone and you upload it to that text message. It sends it over to Ramp and for the bookkeeper to handle.
Very cool.
You can there's also a feature within QuickBooks. If you use QuickBooks Online to record your metrics or to record your financial data, they have an expense feature right there too. Same thing like HubDoc. It's an email address that you can just forward things to, or it's built into the app where you can just take a picture and you can upload it. And then, we also work with clients that just use Dropbox, right? Like we give them one link and they can just upload anything to that link that they need to upload for us. And then the last one is newer for us, but I still like it, is Relay. Relay is actually a bank, but it works it works similarly to Ramp, except it doesn't have to be credit card based, right? So Allison and I, we use Relay for our own banking for profit first. And that's where Allison's employee debit card is, not a credit card, because we didn't want to have credit cards for employees. We just wanted to work with the real money in the bank so that we don't go into debt for our expenses. And so Allison has the same thing. Anytime she uses her debit card for company debit card, it sends her a message and she's got to upload the receipt straight for me. And so it's really great if you're interested in relay, we have referral links that we can set you up with. And so if that's something that you're interested in, reach out to us directly and we can definitely get you guys set up for it. But honestly, I think the software makes the difference of the receipt management. It's just something about having a nice program where things are integrated and that involve less communication between parties. I'm always going to be a fan for, and it's always going to make things more efficient. There's no way around that.
I completely agree. Because I feel like whenever you're traveling, you're more likely to just snap a picture of something and move on with your life rather than trying to do something more complicated. So if we can make it as simple as possible, you have a greater chance of not falling behind.
Exactly. All right. I'm done talking about finances.
Yay. Yeah, shut up.
All right.
Dude. Don't say that.
Right. I mean, I would tell myself to shut up. If I really just if I tune in for an episode to hear about some MotoAmerica stuff and then people were talking to me about receipts, I might tell them to shut up a little bit. So we get it. So out here at Road Atlanta this weekend, we've got some fun classes a race ahead. We've got the baggers, the hooligans, stock 1000, super sport, and superbike classes racing. So it is going to be a fun-packed, fast-paced
Yeah,
weekend.
sure is.
So we thought it would be fun. Yes, we're financial experts. Yes, we're bookkeepers. Yes, we deal with financial data. But like the key line there is that we deal with data.
Yeah.
We like data.
Yeah, we do.
So we thought it would be fun to kind of talk about the current standings across the MotoAmerica classes that will be competing this weekend at Road Atlanta and talk about some of the riders that we, in particular, have eyes on this weekend. So let's start with the hooligans class, Allison. So hooligans, their season actually started back in the beginning of March at the Daytona 200, which is weird. Like, I think even in our Daytona 200 episode, we said it was a non-point scoring round, which was like a half truth. The Daytona 200 is a non-point scoring round.
Yeah.
But outside of the 200 race, the hooligans and the baggers actually did compete in racing that were point scoring events.
Well, okay, cool.
But not every round out at Daytona 200 was a point scoring event. So that's why we see points in our hooligans class already, because our hooligans class did not race out at Barber. They were not out there at the Barber class, and they didn't race out there. Their first race started at Daytona 200. So leading the hooligans class right now, we have Corey Rest, who is on the Harley Davidson with 41 points on the board, and he is followed by a very close second place of Travis Wyman, who is also on a Harley Davidson with 40 points. So we have 1 point that is separating the leaders in the Hooligans Championship right now.
My boys, cool. My Harley boys, I'm saying though.
Well, I mean, and then you'll like third place too, because it's Jake Lewis, who is also on a Harley Davidson. So clearly Harley Davidson is kind of stomping the competition.
I'm excited to see what the bikes look like, because I've ridden the Street Bob, and so I'm intrigued to see what the hooligans motorcycles are going to look like, and see what upgrades they do to them, what their seats look like, what their handlebars, because I've not really watched a whole lot of races. Like, I've seen bits and pieces, but I haven't sat down and looked at what they are riding.
Well, it's not even like not even just what they're riding, it's how they're riding these machines too. Like, compare that to how you ride your Street Bob, and it's your mind's gonna be blown.
It is.
And out of these I'm not surprised by our top 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. They've done well in this class. Jake Lewis, like, I wouldn't say that I'm surprised, but he's just a fun one to watch race. And it was really cool seeing him dice it up at the front at Daytona. I've seen him in a lot of other classes, and I thought it was pretty cool watching him do the damn thing out there at Daytona. So hooligans is going to be fun. I really like the hooligans class. So next, we have King of the Baggers, which again, the baggers started back at Daytona. That was their first round. They were not at Barber in Alabama this past round. So baggers is a little bit of a different standing after the first couple of races, right? We have a clear points leader right now, I would say. First place is Kyle Wyman in the championship. He's on a Harley Davidson and he's got 50 points, which means that he won both races.
Yeah.
Out of Daytona. And he is followed by Troy Herfoss, who is on an Indian, not a Harley Davidson, with 28 points. And I love watching Troy ride. He's a spectacular rider. I really do enjoy watching him on a bike. And our third place in the championship standings so far is Bradley Smith on a Harley Davidson. And I might be wrong, but I think this is his first year on a Harley or in the baggers class period.
Yeah.
So it's rad to see him scoring such good points so early on in the championship. And I'm really excited to keep my eyes on him for this one.
Yeah, it's crazy that Kyle has quite the lead, but I think, especially after this weekend, it's going to be like it's anybody's game. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I was going to say, especially if you add in a little bit of rain there.
Especially if you add in the elements. If you add in the elements, it's gonna be interesting.
All right. So our next class is Stock 1000, and this is actually the first round for Stock 1000. They did not compete out at the Daytona 200, and they did not compete at Barber either. So Atlanta is their first round of the season. And if you don't know, the Stock 1000 class does not follow the full MotoAmerica round or season schedule. Supersport and Superbike and some of our other classes do. Stock 1000 only competes in 5 rounds.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So that's why we don't see them out there at every single round. They still do 2 races per weekend, but they do fewer rounds than our Premier Class series do. So for Stock 1000, we obviously have Jason Uribe on the BMW. We also have Andrew Lee, who is another one to keep an eye on. He's also under the Orange Cat Racing tent with Jason this season. They're on fastest BMWs again. And I'm honestly stoked to see what Andrew's going to bring to the front of the pack, because he honestly did not get the season he deserved last year. So there's just a lot of steep competition there at the front. We also have JD Beach, who is riding in Stock 1000 this year on a Honda. So it might just be a Honda and BMW battles at the end. It seems, right? But JD Beach is a powerhouse. He's ridden in MotoGP. He's an AMA Pro Supersport Championship. And he's a 2-time MotoAmerica Supersport champion.
Wow. That's quite the little lineup right there. Yeah.
He's definitely going to add competition to the front of this pack too. And then we have Rocco Landers, who I hear is on a Suzuki for this season. And I've grown quite fond of Rocco's riding over the last few years. He's shown that he can ride just about anything that you put him on. And so I think he's going to be a fun wild card one to watch this season too.
Yeah, and it's so cool. We're just so excited. We have some clients that are in this class, and we're just we're going to be so excited to be cheering them on, and it'll be so cool to see them in action. So I am just pumped.
Yeah, I'm pumped too. And so our next class is Superbike. A lot of people don't know this about the Superbike class at MotoAmerica, but there's actually 2 different races that go down in every single Superbike race. There's one start, but there are actually 2 different championships that are happening simultaneously on the track. The obvious is the Superbike class, where the teams have a wider range of modifications that they're able to make to the bike themselves that allow them to be more competitive. But we also have the Superbike Cup, which is composed of Stock 1000 riders on Stock 1000 machines that ride in the Stock 1000 class.
Cool.
But they're out there on the track with the Superbikes and with the Superbike riders at the same time. It's really interesting because since they happen simultaneously on track, and even though they are 2 different championships, sometimes we still see the Superbike Cup riders finishing ahead of Superbike riders, especially when you add in factors like rain, like what we saw out at Barber. So it's very interesting. So if you didn't know that, you learned something new today. But both of these classes had their first round out at Barber. So Atlanta is going to be their second round, and they did not compete at Daytona. So They just did Barber, and then now they're doing Atlanta. And so we have Cameron Beaubier on the BMW leading the Superbike championship right now with 45 points, which I absolutely love Cam. So I am stoked to see such a strong start from him. And I hope that that momentum carries throughout the entire season. He really does seem like he's got a really strong, good head on his shoulders this season. So like I'm cheering so hard for Cam this season. But also too, Jake Gagne on the Yamaha with 41 points. So he's only 4 points behind Cam right now. So we still have like a pretty tight championship this early on. But Jake Gagne, oh my goodness, it has been quite a few back-to-back tough seasons for him. But he rocked Barber, and again, it seems like he has a really good head on his shoulders this season as well. Seems like his injuries have improved significantly, so he's riding the bike better. He's got more confidence in his riding too, I'm sure. So it's going to be a battle at the front for Superbike this year for sure. Our next 3 riders are all a little bit tighter. I like all 3 of the riders. I think that the rain honestly really mixed things up at Barber. It's the great equalizer, is what they always say. So it's really going to be interesting to see what happens at Atlanta. But we've got Bobby Fong, Josh Perrin, and Sean Dillon Kelly, Yamaha, Ducati, and Suzuki, all between 26 and 31 points. So like 5 points separating them. But like, look at that on the Superbike class, right? We've got a BMW, we got a Yamaha, we've got another Yamaha, a Ducati, and a Suzuki. So actually, that's 4 different manufacturers in your top 5 in Superbike class alone.
And we're close.
Wild.
I mean, it's going to be crazy to see. It's cool to see the performance of these different bikes and to see, which one's going to come out on top this year.
So then we also have our standings for the Superbike Cup. And like I said, Superbike Cup they're not on these modified machines like the Superbike riders. They're on their stock 1000 bikes in the Superbike class, but they're riding stock 1000 machines. First place, we have JD Beach, 50 points, which means that he finished first of all of these Superbike Cup riders last round at Barber. Not that he finished first place in the Superbike race, because he didn't, but he placed first for the Superbike Cup riders that were on track at that time. So trying to make that connection a little bit more for everybody. And then in second place, we've got Dion Campbell with 36 points. And then third place, we've got Joseph Giannotto with 29 points. And then we have our last class, which is the Super Sport class. This class is absolutely stacked to the nines this season.
Literally.
It is so competitive. They too had their first rounds out at Barber. And so in first place right now, we have Matthew Skoltz on the Yamaha. He's riding an R9. It's the first year we've seen the R9s out here in the Super Sport class too, which is super exciting. He is leading with 41 points. And to be honest, Matthew Skoltz is one of my favorite riders. He's just grace on a bike, in my opinion. Like, he has done a lot of training in the off season. It shows, and I'm talking physical training and mental training, to be quite honest. And I love his mindset about tackling tough situations out on the track, even especially when you look at Barber and how he crashed in that wet race. You could see how composed he was, even though it was definitely a moment that would warrant panicking. He was cool, calm, collected, and then ended up still scoring points at the end of the day in a rain race that he crashed in.
Awesome. That's determination right there.
It's determination. It's the right mindset. It's a bunch of hard work is what it is that he's done. And in second place, we've got PJ Jacobson on the Ducati, and he is only behind Matthew by 1 point. He's got 40 points in the championship standing right now. And PJ also seems like he's done a lot of training during the off season, and he's coming hard to try and fight for that number 1 plate this season and take it from Matthew. I'm sure of it. And then in third place, we have Josh Hayes on a Yamaha. He is also riding an R9 this season, and he's got 31 points. I have been a fan of Josh Hayes for well over a decade. I've watched him racing for quite a number of years. And it's wild to see him still out there shaking it down like he is a youngin, not just shaking it down with the youngins, but like shaking it down like I don't know. He rides that motorcycle. I feel like he's 16 years
Well,
old.
and didn't you
to be
say
quite
that he
honest.
turned 50 at this last Barber race? Like at the
Yeah, I'm happy to see Josh Hayes back in racing. Like he's done a couple of wild card rounds, I'd say, over the last couple of years, but he's doing a full season this year with Supersport. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see him. Then in fourth, we have Blake Davis on the Yamaha, also on an R9. So those R9s are clearly doing some good work out there. And he's had an impressive start to the season. And then in fifth place is our lovely Kayla Yakov on the Ducati as well with 20 points. And she honestly did so well with steady improvements over the weekend at Barber. And she rode beautifully in the rain. She always does. Spoiler alert. And she's our sponsored rider this weekend out here at Atlanta. So we are for sure
pumped.
cheering Kayla on for a podium this weekend because
She's going to kill
girls
it.
earned it first and foremost. And she's showing that she can compete with the old ones, with the guys, with the young ones, with the girls. She does it all. And I absolutely adore her for it. And then in sixth place, we also have Ty Scott on the Suzuki, and he is tied with Kayla at 20 points. Again, he's had another impressive start to the season, too. He's a rider I like watching as well, too. That's why I'm saying, like, the super sport class is so stacked. It's, like, so hard to pick one or two riders that you, like, really just want to cheer for. I'm really, besides cheering for Kayla, because we obviously want Kayla to be on the podium, like, I'm cheering for competitive racing because that's what we're going to get from this class.
Hey, I just want to congratulate Kayla. She's 17. She's a young woman and she's already done so much. And, we're just so proud of her and we're so excited to see her in person. And yeah, so I think this is actually a good spot to wrap up our episode of Full Throttle Finance. We're so excited to be out in the knit and the grit this weekend. And if you're trackside this weekend, come say hi. We're probably going to have some goodie bags. So we hope you can use this episode as your packing list for both gear and finances. And of course, if you're interested in learning more about our services, please visit our website at cleanbeeconsulting.com/full throttle finance. That's CLEANBEE consulting.com/full throttle finance. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next Friday.